Hey, what's up, guys? If you've been watching my channel and following me for the last week or so, you probably know that I haven't been posting videos because I was on vacation in Canada. Spring break. I know people normally go somewhere warm for spring break. I went to Canada. So, a little bit non-conventional, but I love going to Quebec. I love going to practice my French, and so that's what I did. Went up to Canada for the weekend, and haven't really had a whole lot of time to plan out live streams and channel stuff, videos, and things like that. So this one is a little bit more impromptu. I figured I would just talk a little bit about my experiences in Quebec learning French this weekend. Hello, Amal A. Thanks for the comment. And Cheshire Cat, thanks for joining. Michael says, what would you say your level in French is? I don't know. B something, I guess. B2, B1, B2. I don't know. My friend, I just had a interview with my French professor a week or two ago, and she says, oh yeah, you're definitely in the advanced range. Lower advanced or mid advanced or something like that. I don't know. I'm definitely a lot better than majority of the people in my French class who have just learned French via, what would you say, via classes in school, right? Because I actually do stuff and I study outside of class. But I definitely have a lot to learn, long ways to go. Hi, Caleb Brown, the language learner. Thanks for joining. So anyways, spent the week in Canada, mainly in Quebec and Montreal, practicing French. And I also spent 2 days in Toronto, where I was yesterday. Normally I would do my live streams on Friday morning, but I was staying in a hostel and I just didn't want to do a live stream in a hostel lobby or something like that. So I decided to push it back till today. Amal says, how are you doing? I'm doing very well, thank you. I had a great time. Cheshire Cat says, would you say your proficiency in Spanish got worse due to how much you've been using French? Yeah. I'm still improving my French, or improving my Spanish, still getting better, still practicing it little by little, but my practice time is diluted because if I want to keep improving my French too, then I necessarily have to spend less time practicing Spanish. And a lot of times I get words mixed up. Hey, Andy, thanks for joining. I get a lot of words mixed up a lot of times. There'll be days where I'm like trying to say a word in French and it's like, I know the word in Spanish, or I know what word I'm trying to say. I know what word I want to say, but I can't think of if this is actually a word in French or if I'm just like if I'm tricking myself into thinking it's a French word because I happen to know the Spanish word, Moss says, I can understand, but I can't speak. I can't speak why. Can't explain why. I'm not sure what you're talking about there. As far as not able to speak English or not able to explain yourself in English. I don't know. Maybe you can clarify that sentence a little bit. Anyways, man, okay, so this trip started off on a really rough note. I usually take the bus to Quebec, which normally takes like a day. It takes like 24 hours to get to Montreal from Chicago. It's a long bus ride, but it's a lot cheaper than flying in an airplane, so I usually do it. But this time it was not worth it. In fact, I don't know if I'm ever going to ride with Greyhound again because I had a really bad experience with them this time. I showed up at the Greyhound station in Chicago, and like 10 minutes before my bus was scheduled to board, before I was supposed to board my bus, they changed the boarding time from 11:15 to delayed. And I'm like, okay, well, whatever. I've had buses delayed before. I've had planes delayed before. And so I'm sitting there 11:15 at night in the bus station, and I sit there for like 3 hours, and the boarding time still just says delayed. You know, I'm getting tired. It's 2 in the morning. I was a little bit sick. I don't know if you guys remember this. I had to actually cancel my live stream that day because my voice wasn't, I had a sore throat and I was actually legitimately sick. So I was just recovering from that when I was in the bus station. And then at like 2 or 3 in the morning, they make an announcement that the bus is not delayed, it's canceled. So they waited until 10 minutes before my bus was supposed to leave to let us know that it was delayed. And then like 3 hours later, it's canceled. And I go up to the desk and I'm like, all right, when's the next bus? And they say, okay, we can either give you a refund or we can change you to another bus that's leaving a day from now. And so I had to spend the whole day in the bus station. I live too far from Chicago to go back home and then come back again. So I stayed in the bus station, slept on the floor for like 3 hours until they told us that no one's allowed to sleep on the floor. It was just a miserable experience. Anyways, that's how my vacation started off. Fortunately, got a lot better over the next few days. Okay, I'm missing some comments here. Andy says, I tend to mix up Korean and Japanese. I talk to myself in Japanese and then keep catching myself saying Korean words. Yeah, I know. It happens in every language, especially if you're learning languages that are similar. I heard that Japanese and Korean are a little bit similar. I don't really know anything about it. I've also heard that Korean isn't like any other languages, really. It's like a language isolated. I don't know too much about it. Caleb says, if you were to speak French in Quebec, is it hard to understand the Quebec accent? No, because the Quebec accent is the accent that I'm trying to learn. That's how I want to speak French, because I go to Quebec a lot more than I go to France. Maureen says, haha, third world issues. Yeah. It was a tough experience. It sucked. I don't know if I'm gonna ride with Greyhound again. I'm gonna start using Megabus or something, because I was just not happy with that. But anyways, I got to Quebec. I was going with one friend from my university. We met there. Well, he had already been there. I showed up a day later. I usually use couch surfing when I'm traveling. And this is something that I highly recommend. I've never had a bad experience couch surfing. Sometimes I know people, couch surfing has kind of a strange reputation because I don't know, people are scared, or you're just not sure if it's safe or whatever. But for me, it's safe. I've never had a bad experience couch surfing before. You meet a lot of cool people that way, people that live in the city, that usually speak the language, that can show you around. They can be your little tour guides. Not to mention, it's a free place to stay. The free place to stay is like the least important part of couch surfing, in my opinion. Hello, Wes. Salut. Thanks for joining. So I stayed with a guy who I met on couch surfing like 2 or 3 years ago. 2 years ago, I guess. And I've stayed with him at least several times since then. I think this may have been my 4th time staying with him. And every time I go back to Quebec, see him again. All right, now we have some comments over here in languages that I don't understand. Hebrew or something. Are you planning to go to Langfest in Montreal this August? Oh, yeah, good question. Langfest is something that I went to last year. And that was a really good experience. That's in Montreal. It's a big convention for language learners, and I highly recommend going to it. I most likely will not be going to it this year because I am trying to move to Thailand. and I have my last interview with the job that I'm applying for. My last interview is tomorrow night. So wish me luck on that. And if I get the job, then I almost certainly will not be at Langfest this summer, which is a real shame because I had a great time at Langfest. And, a lot of cool people. I learned a lot, gave me a lot of inspiration, just new ideas and stuff. Thank you guys for all the well wishes. And if I don't get the job, I almost certainly will be there because as long as I'm in the country, I'm going to do everything I can to go to Langfest again. And especially I'm going to try to go to Langfest 2 years from now in 2020 or next year, I should say, because they're doing the Esperanto convention. I think the World Esperanto Congresso is going to be at the same time as, or like directly before or after Langfest. So that'll be even more exciting. So Montreal is a great place to go for that. If you're into learning languages, if you want to practice languages with other people, especially if you're learning French, which I am. And so, like I said, I stay with Couchsurfing hosts, which is something I highly recommend for language learners, or just for anyone in general that's interested in travel. If you're one of those wanderlust type people, it's great for just learning more about the culture that you're visiting, learning more about the world, right? Because you're meeting locals who know about the history and the culture of the place where you live. They know about the cuisine. They know about the traditions, the customs, and they can give you advice about public transportation or about what to do. And I've had multiple Couchsurfing hosts in Montreal over the last few years, most of whom are willing to practice French with me. And in fact, I have one Couchsurfing host that will regularly message me in French over Facebook, whether or not I'm in Canada with him. He'll just randomly send me messages every once in a while, and it gives me an opportunity to practice my French. I had another Couchsurfing host who lives a little further outside of the city. He's the one that I stayed with last year when I was attending Langfest. And he invited me and my friend back over to his house this past week, just to have dinner with him. And it was really cool. I had been messaging him over Couchsurfing, just about, telling him that I'm going to be in town. Does he want to meet up or whatever? He said, yeah, come on over to the house. We'll have dinner. I'll make tacos for you guys. And so we had been messaging back and forth in French because he always speaks French with me. He's really good about, he knows that I want to learn French and he knows that I want to practice. And he stays in French, doesn't really switch to English on me, which I really appreciate. And we had been messaging back and forth, and he actually went through the trouble to print off our conversation off of his computer. And he printed it off. He set it on the kitchen table, and he said, all right, you have a very few small petite erreurs, little mistakes that you made in our conversation. And he pulls out a red pen, and he hands me the pen. He's like, correct your mistakes. And I was like, okay. So I went through this paper, and I'm going through, and I'm looking for mistakes and errors. And he goes, yep. And he helped, and he pointed out all the mistakes, all the French mistakes that I made. And it was pretty cool. It's pretty cool. It just shows that people are really seriously willing to help you learn their language, if you show them that you're interested in learning. Tu aimes le français du Québec ou celui de la France? I like Quebec French. It has a certain aesthetic appeal to me. I don't know why. Just feels a little bit more folksy or something. I really like Quebec French. Faisal says, hello, how are you? I'm Faisal from Morocco. I'm beginning in English. I want to learn 3 months. I'm on YouTube. I'm not studying English in school. I have difficulty speaking. Can you give me an? Well, first of all, thanks for joining the live stream, and thanks for commenting. And I think you're doing exactly the right thing by jumping in and commenting and not being afraid to speak the language. I know it's scary, especially when you're brand new to a language, especially when you know you're going to make mistakes, and that's just kind of the fear that you have to get over. I talk about this on the channel a lot. I'm not afraid of screwing up when I speak a language. I make mistakes all the time. And even though I know it might make me sound uneducated, might make me sound stupid, but you just have to learn to get over that. And you just have to speak, knowing full well that you're going to speak incorrectly, but that's okay. That's how you learn. Wikipedia says this is Andy says Wikipedia says that the Esperanto Congress will be in Finland this year and Montreal in 2020. Yep, exactly. That's why I'm really hoping to go to Montreal for the 2020 Langfest / Esperanto Congresso. Give me an advice how to do the speaking. Yeah, we already talked about that. Varning. I don't know how to say it. Warning or varning. Hi, man. I've been doing SML for 1 month, but every time I watch a Spanish-speaking videos or reading a text, I always have to quickly translate it in my native language in my head. Is this normal? I would say, yeah. I mean, how long you say you've been doing it for a month? Yeah, I mean, it takes time to learn a language. You just can't expect to have that internal language dialogue in your head real quick. You do spend a lot of time immersing yourself in the language, not in translative. How would you say that? Not in translative environments. I don't know how to say what I'm trying to say there. Don't just be doing Duolingo. Don't just be doing Pimsleur. Those are both good tools to use if you use them right. But they rely on translating. So don't just do that. You listen to music, right? Read stories, read books in your language without translating them into your native language. That's what you want to do. You want to start to get out of the habit of translating all the time. C'est bon, ha 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 ha. I don't remember what it was that I said that caused you to do that. Le français du Québec, c'est comme l'anglais américain versus British English. Yeah, I mean, every language has its dialects. Brazilian Portuguese versus European Portuguese, Spanish, Argentine Spanish, Mexican Spanish, Colombian Spanish, it's the same thing. Amal says, I have been learning English for 4 months. It's pretty impressive. Good job. Keep up the good work. I live near many Portuguese people, and when they make mistakes, I hardly notice. Yeah, see, that's the thing. When you're speaking to someone who is a non-native speaker of your native language, you don't tend to notice all of the errors that they make, and you don't pay attention to it, right? I mean, maybe some people do. Real grammar Nazis, they exist, but by and large, in general, people don't care if you're making mistakes, right? You don't tend to focus on the things that they said wrong. You're focusing on whatever it is that they're trying to communicate. And same thing, when you're learning a language, you don't want to focus on making sure that your grammar is 100% correct. You want to focus on whatever it is you're trying to focus on, right? Whatever you're trying to communicate, building relationships with the people that you're speaking to. You just need to learn to be bold and just speak, even if you know that you're going to make some mistakes. And you certainly, good and well, will make mistakes. And it's not to be feared. C'est comme ça que les enfants apprennent quand ils commencent à parler. I think he's talking about in reference to what we were talking about with not translating, just like immersing yourself or something. That's how children learn to speak when they first start to speak. Faisal says, "My dreams, I learn English and German. It's a beautiful language." Yeah, yeah. I have a dream of learning a lot of languages. I don't know. There are some languages to me that are just aesthetically pleasing sounding. And I'm not sure why. I'm not sure what it is about certain sounds that sounds beautiful. I really like Quebecois French, uh, maybe Argentine Spanish or something like that. Some languages are just ugly sounding to me. I mean, I don't know. It's not anything against the people that speak them, or you know, the it's not intended to be like a racist thing or anything. There's just some languages that don't sound good, in my opinion. Obviously, that's that's definitely a subjective statement. Ton français est vraiment bien. T'as presque l'accent d'ici. Are you from Quebec then, Wes? I feel like we've talked about this before, but I can't remember. My brother had a dream that he was the owner of a French restaurant, and it was all in French. Nice. I've often found that native speakers in general are very flattered when you do an effort to use their language, so mistakes don't matter much. Yeah, exactly. In fact, especially in Quebec, I find that language in Canada is so political. And it's been that way for many years. Especially with francophones having been kind of been oppressed, or kind of be the minority in their own province, not the minority, but kind of subjects to the Anglophones with all the power and money, that they really do appreciate it. That's like what I said with my couchsurfing host, who lives in Laval, and it would be a lot easier for him just to speak English with me, because he speaks English better than I speak French. But he always goes through the effort of speaking French with me, because I think he sees it as a really big deal that an Anglophone is trying to learn his language. So I'm glad that I'm able to do that. Okay, Wes is from Montreal. Cool. Yeah, that's where I just was this week. Andy says, you can practice your pronunciation with Speechling and then find a free language exchange partner on italki who is learning your native language. I'm not sure what Speechling is. I'll have to look that up. I don't think I've used that before. I've used so many different resources and stuff that sometimes I forget which ones I have or have not used. Wes says, the problem here is the English think we don't like them just because we want to protect our French. Sorry, one of these messages was hidden for some reason. Held for review. Okay. I want to approve it. I'm not sure why Cheshire Cat's comment wasn't allowed. Okay. Anyways, Cheshire Cat says, do you guys know hellolingo.com? I haven't used that, I don't think. But he says it's a great website to find language partners. Is that like Hello Talk? It sounds like, or kind of like Tandem or something. Oh yeah. Anyways, Wes says, the problem here is the English think we don't like them just because we want to protect our French. Yeah, I mean, it's a cultural thing, you want to maintain your culture, right? You want to maintain your language, and I understand that. There are other people who just have very strong opinions about, one of my couch surfing hosts one time was telling us that he was in Calgary or somewhere like that, and speaking French with someone else, and someone walked up to him and he says, "Hey, we speak Canadian here." the Canadian language. Yeah, I don't know. Some people are just stupid. But yeah, I totally support people that want to continue maintaining their language. You want to pass that on. You want to. What says, I am French Canadian native speaker and I love English, but I just don't want to lose my French for that. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely admirable to try to learn as many languages as you can. It's not to say that one is better or that you should stop using one or another, but I myself love languages, so that kind of goes without saying. Well, I didn't really have a whole lot to talk about today. This was kind of a last minute thing that I essentially just got back from my vacation and I just decided I would talk about it. I didn't so much plan out an actual topic like I normally do most Fridays. So I guess I don't know if anyone has any other questions or comments or anything. It's kind of just free for all now. Otherwise, we'll get going here. Okay, William says exactement. Et moi aussi, j'adore toutes les langues. Yeah, I mean that's all you can ask for. Moi aussi, Evil Dumb says moi aussi. He says, I've often found that native speakers. Oh, yeah, I already read that comment. Yeah. Thanks for joining, Andy. Thanks for watching. All right. Well, oh, here we go. Michelle says, I was wondering if you can be a linguist or have a lot of knowledge without being a linguistics major. I am fascinated by it. Well, yeah, you can have a lot of knowledge without being a linguistics major. It is fascinating, though. Linguistics is a really interesting field of study that most people don't know anything about. They don't even know what it is. Most people think linguist is synonymous with polyglot, which are entirely different entities, right? Like a polyglot is someone that learns languages. A linguist is someone who studies human language as an entity or some aspect of human language, but they might only speak one language, right? And they might not even speak any languages if they're deaf. Then they only can sign, right? So, which I mean, sign language is definitely a language too, or the various sign languages are. But anyways, all that to say that being a linguist has nothing to do with how many languages you speak. It's much more analytical, and you're studying just different aspects of language. It's a science. That's what it is. Do you get scared to tell people you learn languages? Because I have that problem. I've never been afraid of telling people that I learn languages. Most people find that to be a pretty admirable hobby. So I'm not afraid of telling people that I learn languages. Sometimes I'm a little bit hesitant to say I speak language X, right? Because as soon as I say I speak French, then they're going to want to have a conversation with me in French, or they're going to say, hey, say something in French. And then first of all, I don't know what to say in French. And second of all, if they do speak French, then then I'm going to feel like a little bit of a fake, unless I have really good French. Although, like at what level can you be said to actually speak the language? I don't know. I mean, if you're an A1, then you can speak French, right? Like you can say je m'appelle and je suis, right? And you can maybe recite the lyrics to a song or something. That's speaking French. I don't know. Some gray areas in there. It's kind of like, at what level are you fluent? Is B2 fluent? Is C1 fluent? Right? Is B1 fluent? I don't know. It's a gray area with a lot of gradient in there. Story of my life, yeah. All right. Well, anyways, I'm going to cut off the live stream here. Thank you all for joining. Thanks for following my ramblings. I should be back on a more regular schedule this week. Uh, Probably a regular video on Monday and then another live stream on Friday. So thank you guys for joining. For those of you who were here for the live stream, and I'll talk to you guys later. We'll see you.